We have some breaking news on the OceanGate sub search. According to the U.S. Coast Guard, the Horizon Arctic's ROV discovered a debris field on the seafloor near the Titanic wreckage this morning. While it still remains unknown, obviously, the fate of the submersible, experts say that their oxygen stores have likely run out by now if they were still alive. There's expected to be a press conference today at 3 p.m. about this latest discovery.
This gives some credence to the theory that submersible imploded. As we mentioned earlier today, entrepreneur Mario Nawfal said he hosted an 8-hour space on Twitter discussing the Titanic sub with experts and friends of the passengers. And the most likely scenario from that conversation was that the hull of the submersible imploded due to the brittle carbon fiber material, killing all 5 passengers within milliseconds. Obviously, tragic news for their families. In some ways, the quicker end to this all might honestly have been a blessing of sorts compared with the drawn out suffocation in the cold, in the dark, in their own,
Right.
There's no bathroom on the boat. So this is, a tragic story either way, but also a story of really gross incompetence and negligence, it seems.
Sure. And, this is not, we have to await the press conference to know more information. A debris field does not even necessarily mean this is the ship or is from the ship, but we'll have to wait to hear more about that. Obviously, there was always so little chance, I think, of finding the ship in time and intact and the passengers safe and then being able to rescue them was all really just extraordinarily unlikely. It would have taken an honest-to-God miracle. So, now we're just trying to understand what did happen. Was there negligence involved? What does this mean? Etc. Obviously, the families, want to know for sure that it's over. We're probably bracing themselves for the worst, as seemed honestly very likely from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, we alluded to this in the earlier segment on this, but haven't spoken specifically about one of the biggest vulnerabilities that are allegedly on this vessel, which is this 7-inch acrylic window on the sub that was essentially the whole purpose of the trip was to go down and be able to see the Titanic in person, which so few people have actually done. But that was one of the areas in which the OceanGate CEO, Stockton Rush, apparently cut corners. So apparently the window, since it wasn't the appropriate type, gets squeezed by the water pressure as it descends, and that is one of the major vulnerabilities in this particular vessel. That's from reporting in the Daily Mail.
I mean, again, people are discussing this a lot on social media. It sounds like a debris field, right, means the vessel imploded and would have been an incredibly speedy end for the passengers. They wouldn't have even been aware of it. It would have been instantaneous, which, as you said, is kind of the best case scenario.
I mean, another interesting development here is that it was announced that there's going to be a documentary airing today on the submersible tragedy. And people are saying, you're already planning this documentary before we even know what the outcome is of this whole event. Did they cut 2 separate endings in the possible events?
They already made a documentary.
Here's reporting from Deadline.
They were already planning one about this?
No, I think that they just really saw the moment, in the media moment. Quickie Titanic sub documentary set on British TV just hours after the onboard craft is expected to run out of oxygen.
Channel 5 is shaking up its Thursday night television schedule with a live special report on OceanGate's Titan.
Titanic sub lost at sea is set to air at 7 p.m. Thursday in Britain, which is like now.
I mean, I guess is this so much a documentary as like a live news broadcast? But I guess it's not.
Well, my understanding is, of course, you mentioned the gentleman who had gone down in the sub and done the reporting on it, done a documentary on it before this happened, David Pogue.
Yeah.
And so I do think it seems like to me like a kind of an extension of that project, but the the ending of it is this much more macabre voyage down to the bottom of the sea gone wrong.
Yeah.
So there has been some criticism about the choice to put something like this out so quickly. Is it exploitative? Is it in bad taste? Or, is this just market forces doing what they do?
People are drawn to these kinds of tragedies, ships, planes going missing. Obviously, the Titanic itself is perhaps the most famous of these kinds of stories and has, entranced people for 100 years, leading to one of the, best known, most popular, most watched movies of all time, most celebrated movies of all time, leading to so much continued interest that people do things like what the Titan sub did, take voyages down to the very murky depths, nearly as far down as you can possibly go in the ocean to see it. We're a curious species that is captivated by these kinds of, the Malaysian airplane too. Remember that?
For sure.
I was very interested to know what that happened. One of my favorite pieces of journalism I've ever read is the Atlantic's long piece on the ultimate fate of the Malaysian airplane, where the writer concludes that it was most likely the pilot who decided to kill everyone and crash it.
Well, in some respects, this is another sort of a pilot error situation because of the relationship between the pilot and being the constructor of the funder of this craft. The names of the missing explorers are Hamish Harding, Shahzada Dawood, his son Suleiman Dawood, Paul Henry Negrellet, and Stockton Rush, who has been the focus of so much of the criticism and conversation over the past 24 hours.
He did something negligent. He didn't just put other people at risk. He put himself at risk of paying the ultimate price.
Yeah, and including, I think there's been some mixed sympathies here because of the nature of this endeavor and the amount of money that these people spent. But I do think to the extent that there has been kind of uniform sympathy, it is for the 19-year-old Suleiman Dawood, who perhaps wasn't in the same position to accept risk as some of the
sad
adults,
when people die.
the older
I think
people
there should
here.
be sympathy all around, no matter what. All right, that's all we have on that. We'll, of course, keep following this story. More rising right after this.